order to kick off our next group of lightning talks. And first off, we will hear from Meghan Joyce, who has just recently joined as the COO of Oscar Health. Prior to Oscar, Meghan was an early joiner at Uber. She quickly rose the ranks and joined the executive team there and went on to lead one of Uber's most important regions. She is also a member of the board of the Boston Beer Company, and I have the immense privilege to call her a very good friend. Beyond all of that, a little fun fact, she was voted most disgustingly happy person in her high school class, and she is very well known for her incredibly pragmatic style. So I'm excited to hear from her today. Please join me in welcoming Meghan Joyce.
Thank you all so much, and thank you, Lily, and thanks for having me. I am here to talk very briefly about a subject that I care a lot about and am personally passionate about it, and also professionally. I've grown quite passionate about it as well. And that is leadership at scale. And the reason that I think I've grown so interested in this subject is because when you are on the ground in a high-growth organization, as I've done at Uber and now at Oscar and with a number of other organizations that I've advised and worked with and witnessed along the way, leadership often feels like a luxury that we don't have time to invest in, or it's not something worth prioritizing. And to be honest, for a lot of early stage organizations, we can get away with that for a while because the product market fit is strong, or we're working so hard to figure out the tactics of the business that we don't have time to prioritize something like people management or leadership. And beyond that, teams are generally quite small when they get started. And so we don't have the same kind of dire need for people management in any kind of scalable way. But at some point along the way, there are going to be growing pains, or at least with all of the organizations that I've worked with, we've run into this phase. And I like to compare it to this awkward, gangly teenager phase where the newness and shininess of a startup has kind of worn off a little bit. We're scaling the team, it's all going well, and all of a sudden we start to hit some potholes. They may manifest themselves in things like systems breaking, processes breaking, culture breaking down a bit, it no longer feeling like the easy, we all know why we're here, like it did when it was just a bunch of founders sitting around a table. The organization might feel like certain org structures or norms, things that served us for a really long time really well, are actually no longer serving us. Either a lack of coordination or prioritization that once allowed functions or teams to move really quickly start to break down and slow us down, or teams realize they're working on redundant things. I can't tell you how many times I've seen an incredibly hardworking group of people who are working blood, sweat, and tears to build something only to get to the 1 yard line and realize that a team across the company was working on the same thing as well. Uncoordinated roadmaps, growing dissatisfaction, feelings like we're getting burnt out because there's just so much grind trying to push that boulder uphill. These are all signs of growing pains as we have the very positive problem of scaling our team in a growing org. But that to me is a sign that we need to take a pause and take a step back and start to prioritize leadership in a way that we might not have had the opportunity or the reason to do so in the past. And the good news is, this is an inevitable part of growth. It means that the business is scaling, the team is scaling, and that we are going through that process of moving from early stage startup to the adult company that we want to be. But just like the teenager phase for any of us, or at least me, my teenager phase, it can be a little awkward and difficult along the way. So how do we get there? The antidote, in my experience, really is leadership, and making it known to the team that leadership is now part of the definition of success. It's not the only thing. We still need the business to perform. We still need to lean into high growth. But when we do this, leadership actually becomes an accelerant of that success, especially if we want to grow on any kind of sustainable trajectory. And so making that expectation known that good leadership, good people management is as important as any other performance vector, especially with first-time managers or frontline managers, which appear in abundance at high-growth organizations, people who were the best doers who got promoted into management roles because they made the best widgets, who have never managed before in their lives. They need to be told that good leadership, good management is actually something to work on. But how, right? It's one thing to say that, but how do we actually put that into action? Well, first I would start with a couple definitions. One is leadership in general. Leadership is making others better as a result of your presence in a way that lasts into your absence. It's not about you, it's about the team. Second, optimistic leadership is the conviction that we will get through it. And I want to note, this is different than blind faith. It's also different than faking it. It's the knowledge that we have all the tools and personalities and skills that we need to get through this, and if we don't have them right here around this table, we'll go and find them because we're scrappy and resourceful. Finally, I want to go through a brief framework of things that I've found helpful in the past, and that's high standards and high support. This can be a really easy framework for first-time managers. The gist is human nature tends to go towards one of the two extremes. Either high standards, think the drill sergeant who just tells people exactly what the high bar is they need to meet every time, or high support, think the loving, nurturing kindergarten teacher that got us all where we are today. But the reality is we need both, and if you think back on the best coach or mentor or teacher that you've ever worked for, or been a part of their team, my guess is they brought both high standards and high support to drive great performance of the team on a sustainable basis. If you're having trouble with this, moving from high standards to high standards and high support, try taking some time to figure out what makes the task so hard. And just that act will show your team that you care. If you're the kind of person who veers towards high support without the high standards, remember, there are two ways to lead: preparing the path for the child or the child for the path. And only one of those is the right answer. Prepare your team for the path ahead. There is no silver bullet. This takes time. But by emphasizing these kinds of things with your team, I've found a lot of success in making them happier and their team happier on the job and driving true sustainable high growth over time. Thank you so much for the time, and I'm very excited to get to know all of you. Take care.